Murder of Crows, Book 4, Ghosts of Detroit, by Lorelai. Chapter 3. Her brief encounter with Neil on the driveway had been unsettling. He'd helped her gather the fallen herbs, his hands surprisingly gentle for such a mischievous smile. But it was his question that lingered as Kelsey lay in bed that night, the words echoing in the quiet house. "Market get a little crowded for you today?" He hadn't just been making small talk. He had been asking if she'd seen it too, the strangeness. She wiggled her toes to make sure she was awake. Was Marie real? Or was this all some side effect of the glimmer drug she'd heard about? Was its residue in the house somewhere, left behind by drug dealers? She would have to clean more. Her exhaustion won out over her spiraling thoughts. She fell asleep to a lullaby in her mind. A slow, sweet song sung by a distant woman's voice. She dreamed she was in her backyard. The 4 children waited for her on the lawn, just as she had first seen them. The tall boy held the blue ball, smiling as if they were already friends. They waved Kelsey into the game. A loud banging of hammers startled them. The children scrambled around the fence. Kelsey ran along behind them. Murder of Crows, Book 4, Ghosts of Detroit, by Lorelai. Chapter 3, Part 2, page 14. The tall boy stopped short. He held up a hand, and the others fell silent. He was looking out over the field grass, where a raised garden sat in the foundations of an old house. People were working the garden, their movements slow. Most of them looked solid, but a few at the edges were different. They seemed faded and thin, their forms flickering like bad video quality. One woman looked up, and Kelsey flinched from the sight of her hollow, exhausted eyes. Her clothes were worn, as if she had been wearing them for decades. Kelsey wondered if this is what a haunting looked like. The tall boy waved his hand to the left, and the garden vanished. In its place stood the crumpled, burned remains of a house. He waved his hand again, and the decay worked in reverse, a freshly painted house standing before them. He waved his hand to the right, and the house burst into flame and collapsed. For a terrifying second, the houses vanished entirely, replaced by a primeval forest under a blood-red sky. Hulking, horned shapes moved between the trees, their eyes glowing with a cold, ancient hunger. Then the vision was gone, and a park with a swing set occupied the lot. Kelsey swallowed hard. The houses shifted around them, a whole neighborhood materializing, packed with the feeling of working people. The gardeners reappeared. The produce sparkled. Kelsey reached out and plucked a ripe tomato from a vine. It was warm and heavy in her hand. She took a bite. Tasty? The vegetable seller, Daisy, was suddenly standing beside her. "I'm sorry, I should have asked," Kelsey said. Daisy's grin didn't hide her ragged teeth. "Help yourself. We share with those who share with us." Murder of Crows, Book 4, Ghosts of Detroit, by Lorelai. Chapter 3, Part 3, page 15. She looked toward the flickering, faded figures at the edge of the garden. Her smile tightened. "Most of us, anyway." "What do you mean?" Kelsey asked. "There's something new out there, Kelsey," Daisy whispered, her voice like dry leaves. "Something that takes from us and gives the living a little glimmer, a taste of our world." "I heard about that. Is it in the water?" Kelsey asked. Daisy shook her head. "No, you have to inject it. But it isn't as great as it seems at first. It's not a fair trade. I slowed my use when I saw my energy flicker like it was being drained." "The glimmer takes more than it gives?" "Glimmer is the worst drug of them all. It's like it takes your whole soul," Daisy said, but she didn't explain further. "What's his name?" Kelsey asked, pointing at the tall boy to change the subject. "Jonathan," Daisy said. "You're all dead, aren't you?" Kelsey guessed. If this city was going crazy, that was the most logical explanation. They were all seeing the dead. Why not? This was Detroit. It had several hundred years of history as a city. Why couldn't some of it still be looping here in the present day? Daisy shrugged. How dead is dead enough to really live for once? Kelsey woke up with what felt like a thud. It was morning. Her hand was still cupped, as if holding a heavy tomato. She could taste the juice running down her throat. A thumping came from the backyard. She ran to the window. Jonathan was there, bouncing a ball off the fence. He looked up, sensing her gaze, and waved. Kelsey hurried downstairs in her pajamas. He came over to the back steps. Murder of Crows, Book 4, Ghosts of Detroit, by Lorelai. Chapter 3, Part 4, page 16. My name is Kelsey, she said. Where are your friends today? One of them had to go to school, he said. Noelle is living. Does she know you're dead? He shrugged. I'm just as good at playing at ball as the modern kids. I taught them these games we play. Your name is Jonathan, right? Daisy told me in the dream. Are you real? What makes a person real? He asked, his accent shifting to something more old-fashioned. If you mean was I living once, then yes, ma'am, I surely was. If you mean am I an ordinary person, well, Miss Lovett Street isn't an ordinary place, or you wouldn't have come back, now would you? Me, Jonathan? Where do you live? Here, he said. Here where? Downstairs, he replied, pointing a thumb at her fogged basement windows. We used to call it the root cellar. You live in my basement? My basement. It has sufficed, he said, his face unnervingly serious. I was waiting for you to take possession of this house. Then he was gone, vanishing from in front of her. The words landed like stones in her gut. Waiting for her. This wasn't just a haunting. It was an appointment of some sort. But with what? Later, as the dusk settled, Kelsey couldn't rest. The memory of the faded, hollow-eyed ghosts, Daisy's warnings, and Neil's knowing question churned within her. It made sense, but only if she let go of common sense about how reality worked. What had her father once told her when she was caught playing with the rocket models in his home office? Reality is stranger, he had said, than you can believe. Truth was, she hadn't felt connected to anyone since knowing him, at least before Brady was born. Her mother, well, she had never known what to make of her suffocation and seemingly contradictory distance. This town held a lot of strange memories, come to think of it, almost like she remembered floating in bubbles of colored light that surrounded her and each of her family members. But theirs had clashed. The family had fallen apart when Brady went to war. She brewed a pot of tea and settled into the beanbag chair in the living room, peering out the front window. She was going to figure out what was going on, even if she had to go to one of these raves or think herself to death. But first, she would watch to see if the neighbor was right about nighttime around here. Maybe she would see a glimmer kid. Murder of Crows, Book 4, Ghosts of Detroit, by Lorelai. Part 5, page 17. For an hour, nothing moved but the wind in the blighted elm tree. Kelsey began to drift off despite her wild thoughts circulating about what was going on. The street was totally still. The grandfather clock ticked slowly behind her, as if time itself began to stretch as she slowed to a stop and sat still, in the energetic beating heart of Detroit, where she belonged. Then it was as if the colors of the night shifted slightly. She peered outside, looking for what had changed. A shadow detached itself from the deeper gloom of the vacant lot next door. The thing was low to the ground, impossibly large, and moved with a predatory grace that was utterly alien to a city street. The shadow took shape in the light of the street. A horned beast with a red skin stepped into the glow of the street lamp. It stood up on its hind legs. Murder of Crows, Book 4, Ghosts of Detroit, by Lorelai. Chapter 3, Part 6, page 18. It wasn't just passing through. It was sniffing the air, its massive head turning slowly as if searching for a scent. For a moment, the streetlights flashed in its eyes, making them glow as if they were on fire. Kelsey's heart hammered against her ribs. She was about to shrink back from the window when a light turned on in the house across the lot. In the warm square of light out the kitchen window, she could see Neil. He was standing at his own window, holding a rifle. His posture was tense. He was looking at the exact same spot she was. Her mouth fell open. He lowered the gun slightly. His gaze swept across the dark lawn and met hers through the 2 panes of glass. He didn't smile or wave. He didn't look surprised to see her there. He simply gave her one slow, solemn nod of acknowledgement and pointed at the beast. He shook his head no, as if to say, do not approach. Don't even make eye contact. Just don't move. A wave of vertigo washed over Kelsey. She wasn't crazy, unless she was asleep again or dead herself from being poisoned by glimmer overdose. But the monster in the yard was terrifyingly real. And for the first time, she knew without a doubt that she wasn't the only living person on Lovett Street who could see it. What on earth was a monster doing here in the middle of a city?